Today, Iran took aim at ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The UK reporting multiple ships have been attacked in or near the strait. Thailand's Royal Navy says one is theirs.
The U.S. Navy fields the ultimate mine countermeasures force. 11 Avenger-class ships, QS-20 sonar mapping the seabed, MH-53 helicopters sweeping mines with precision. Every tool, patrol, and system built to detect and neutralize threats. Yet some mines remain hidden, ready to strike.
Today, U.S. Central Command vowed action against any Iranian attacks. The U.S. released new video of strikes on Iranian naval ships, saying it's destroyed 16 mine-laying vessels after reports Iran was planning to use mines to further disrupt the flow of oil through the strait.
Here's what most people don't realize. The Strait of Hormuz isn't some wide-open ocean. At its tightest point, it's just 21 nautical miles across, and the actual shipping lane, barely 4 miles wide. That's it. And through that narrow stretch flows about 21% of the world's daily oil supply. So even a small disruption doesn't just stay local. It ripples across economies, fuel prices, and global stability almost instantly. And then things got real. 17 tankers were attacked in that exact corridor. Not all of them were destroyed, and that's the part people miss. This wasn't about sinking ships. It was about shaking confidence. Within days, Strack hit the market. Insurance premiums spiked hard. Shipping companies started hesitating. And suddenly, that 4-mile stretch felt a lot smaller. No massive explosions needed, just enough damage to make everyone question whether it was worth the risk. But here's where it gets deeper. This wasn't random chaos. Iran had been studying this exact scenario since 1984. Their mine warfare strategy isn't improvised. It's built on decades of doctrine, pulling from Soviet-era designs, North Korean tech transfers, and their own in-house development. And the goal? It's surprisingly simple. Control that 4-mile corridor and turn it into a zone of uncertainty. Not a total shutdown, just enough unpredictability that every ship entering has to think twice. Because once doubt creeps in, the system starts breaking itself. And that's the key idea most people overlook. These mines aren't just weapons meant to destroy ships. They're tools designed to pressure economies. First, the NMU contacted me. Simple, old school, deadly. It just waits for a ship to physically hit it. Easier to detect, easier to deal with, at least on paper. Then comes the M08 influence mine. This one doesn't need contact. It listens, it feels. The magnetic field, the sound of engines, and boom. A ship can pass meters above it and still trigger detonation. Suddenly, clearing becomes a guessing game. But the real nightmare, the EM-52. This thing sits quietly on the seabed, like it doesn't even exist. Then, the moment it detects the right target, it fires a rocket straight upward. Fast, violent, precise. And here's the part that changes everything. You can clear an area at noon, and by midnight, it's deadly again. That single capability breaks the entire logic of traditional mine clearing. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where the situation really falls apart. Iran can deploy over 1,000 mines in just 72 hours. And remember, we're dealing with only 4 miles of usable water. On the other side, a U.S. Avenger-class ship clears about 0.5 square nautical miles per day under perfect conditions. The full area? Around 84 square nautical miles. That's roughly 168 days to fully clear it. But here's the catch. Iran can come back and reseed that same corridor in just 48 hours. So no matter how fast you clear, you're always behind. That's the core problem. Mine clearing doesn't win the fight. It just delays losing it. And this part quietly tilts everything. One mine costs Iran around $15,000. Cheap, simple, repeatable. To neutralize that same mine, the U.S. spends anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000, depending on conditions. That's a brutal 10-to-1 imbalance, and that's before factoring in complex mines like the EM-52, which demand even more time and precision. So every mine dropped isn't just a threat, it's a financial trap. It forces overreaction, drains resources, and keeps the pressure building. But wait. This was never really about sinking ships. It's about making the entire route feel unsafe. Within days, insurance premiums shot up 8 times. Tankers started rerouting all the way around the Cape of Good Hope, adding nearly $1.2 million per trip. No massive explosions, no full blockade. Just uncertainty creeping into every decision. And that's the real damage. Because once fear enters the system, the disruption spreads on its own. And this is the moment everything shifts. Because the Navy saw the trap. Sweeping mines only clears what was there yesterday, while Iran keeps planting what comes next. It's a losing cycle. So instead of rushing in, they did something unexpected. They held their Avenger ships back in Bahrain. No mass clearing, no reactive move. That decision flipped the mindset completely. This wasn't about chasing mines anymore. It was about stepping out of the race entirely and changing how the game was played. But here's the smarter play. Don't fight the mine. Stop it before it even touches water. Because a mine isn't just a weapon. It's the final step in a chain. It has to be built, stored, transported, and then deployed. Break any part of that chain, and the mine never becomes a threat. So the focus shifted fast. Don't destroy the product. Destroy the process behind it. First, the fast patrol boats. Light, fast, but fragile. Fiberglass hulls carrying serious payloads. And against something like an MH-60R helicopter with Hellfire missiles, they don't stand a chance. One strike, and the whole load goes with it. Suddenly, the cost flips. Now it's in the Navy's favor. Then the submarines. Iran's Fateh-class boats try to stay hidden, but the Persian Gulf isn't deep, quiet water. It works against them. They can be detected. The problem is tracking them continuously. But the hardest challenge? The Dow network. Regular fishing boats blending in perfectly. 40 to 100 potentially involved. No visual difference, no easy target. Just pure ambiguity. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because the answer wasn't to look harder. It was to look smarter. Enter the MQ-9B Guardian drones. These things can stay in the air for up to 27 hours. Just watching. Not for weapons, for patterns. Because a fishing boat and a mine layer might look identical, but they don't move the same. One slows down in deep water, stops where it shouldn't, repeats strange routes with no clear destination. That's the tell. So instead of trying to see the mines, the Navy started reading behavior. And once you track patterns at scale, what was invisible before suddenly becomes very, very clear. And just when you think the mines have the upper hand, this shows up. The LCAC, an air cushion vehicle that literally floats above the water. It spreads its weight so lightly, around 70 pounds per square foot, that it doesn't even register on mines like the EM-52, which are calibrated for much heavier targets. So it just passes through. No trigger, no explosion, nothing. It doesn't clear the minefield. It ignores it. And that completely changes how movement through danger even works. Now here's where it all comes together, piece by piece, assumption by assumption. Iran expected the US to start sweeping mines immediately, but that never happened. The Navy refused to play that game. They assumed economic pressure would fracture the coalition. Instead, carrier presence stabilized the situation, calming markets faster than any mine clearance ever could. They counted on cost asymmetry staying in their favor. But once the US started targeting the platforms instead of the mines, that advantage flipped completely. The Dow network? Supposed to be invisible. But behavioral surveillance turned patterns into targets, exposing what couldn't be seen directly. And the biggest assumption, that mines would remain a constant, unavoidable threat. Then the LCAC showed up, and suddenly, some of those mines couldn't even detect what was moving through them. One by one, the entire framework started breaking down. But here's the part most people don't talk about. It's not fully over. Iran's Jask naval base sitting outside the strait still gives them access to deploy mines from a different angle. That problem hasn't been completely neutralized. Submarines. They can be detected, yes, but tracking them consistently in a contested environment is still a challenge. And then there's the bigger issue, the market. Insurance rates, risk calculations, global perception. Those don't reset just because the military situation improves. Because at the end of the day, Success on the battlefield doesn't automatically fix the economic damage, and that's where this fight keeps going.
Overnight, amid the ongoing war against Iran, the global price of oil skyrocketing, topping $100 a barrel, despite President Trump's promises of relief.
And this is the real takeaway. Iran never needed to shut the strait down completely. They just needed to make it expensive, uncertain, risky enough that every decision becomes harder, because uncertainty itself becomes the weapon. The Navy solved the military side of the equation. That part is clear. But the economic side, that's still moving, still reacting, still shaping outcomes long after the last mine is gone. This wasn't about explosions. It was about pressure, cost, and control. And honestly, that's what makes it more dangerous. So what do you think? Did the Navy outplay the strategy? Or is this far from over?